sweetheart, it's Bubby. Look forward to talking to you as usual. Lovely.
Should I wear my orange glasses? I'll pass on that. Bought those in Israel.
Oh, nice. Nice. When were you in Cairo?
I'm going to say 10 years ago. We took a cruise down the Nile.
Oh.
Of all the things that I've done traveling, that and going to Normandy were the two. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What like when you're going a cruise down the Nile, you get to see a lot.
It's like it was 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're making matzah.
On the Nile.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Just you go back in time. It was really a fascinating experience.
I'll hopefully be in Cairo in June.
Oh, nice.
That's good to know if I'm thinking
But
of things to do.
I'm madly in love with Israel. I go to Israel twice a year.
Great.
I would say I've been to Israel close to 50 times.
Wow.
When I'm in Israel, I'm at home.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered living there?
I have two boys who are now in their 50s, who have families, who live within 2 blocks of right here.
Yeah.
It's a very tight-knit, close family. So what am I going to do there when they were all here?
Yeah. When you're in Israel, you have a chance to travel around, or where do you spend most of your time?
I spend most of the time, I tell people I'm in Jerusalem because I'm a rabbi, but I'm in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
Tel Aviv is an alive city. I love walking around there.
Yeah.
Nothing special, just being there.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about it that always hits me. Always hits me.
Do you feel like when you go there, you're having a different experience every time, even though you've been there, you said 50 times?
Every time you go, there's something new that you notice. It just has a rhythm and a beat that I'm just sort of sinking to. It's alive.
But Tel Aviv, definitely a different rhythm and beat than
Completely different,
Jerusalem.
yes.
Yeah.
But I like both rhythms.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge for Israel now is to get in sync with those two rhythms because those are they're very, very far apart.
Mm-hmm.
Very far apart.
Yeah.
And the reality is each one really doesn't want the other one to exist.
Yeah.
And they exist, and you have to get along. And you got to give a little, take a little.
Have you seen that change over the past years that you've been going there?
You know, it's not something you sense walking the streets. You get on the bus, it could be anybody and everybody. But it's something you know it's there, or I know it's there because I'm so familiar with the ultra-Orthodox community and with the secular community. Mm-hmm. Usually when we go to Israel, there's friends that we met in the United States. When I spent a summer, I was the Orthodox rabbi for the B'nai B'rith youth organization, Summer Kala. And we met an Israeli family there. I think this is 1976. And we're still very, very close. Now, when we go, oftentimes we'll stay by them a day or two, and they experience Shabbos completely different than the way I experience Shabbos. I mean, there can be some classical music playing in the background, just setting a certain tone. But they know it's Shabbos. But on the other side, the ultra-Orthodox so isolate themselves that they don't even know that these seculars know it's Shabbos. It's just a different kind of Shabbos. And each has to learn to respect the way the other does it. The ultra-Orthodox don't have no respect for that. They're all goyim.
And
I grew up with that kind of. I went to an ultra-Orthodox elementary school and high school, and I know what the thinking is, and I know where it comes from. And I know their attitude is, in 100 years, there's only going to be ultra-Orthodox Jews, because everybody's going to assimilate away. And they have reason to feel that way. They do have reason. Here in America, 40% of American Jews don't have a Pesach Seder. That is absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, if you're not doing the Pesach Seder, you ain't doing. And if you think that by planting trees, you're doing the Jewish thing, it's not enough. And what if your children don't want to plant trees?
So what's so special about the Pesach Seder?
You're asking the wrong person that, because to me, the Pesach Seder is the highlight of the year. It's my immediate family, and it's family that comes from New York and guests from Washington, and there could be 20 people sleeping in the house. And God, it's everybody, and it's such a good Jewish experience. You know, it connects you again with your roots. We used to have a rule that at the Pesach Seder you can't talk about anything that's not Jewish. We don't do that anymore, but we encourage not talking about politics. But we fall into that also. It's interesting, you know, I'm describing to you my Pesach Seder, how it's really, really the center of the year. I mean, we have a matzah toilet seat. Okay? So we get into this Pesach thing.
Are there any specific traditions that your family has created?
No. We go by the book. But the book that we use now is a commentary my granddaughter wrote on the Pesach Haggadah for her bat mitzvah, and we had it printed and published, and that's now the Haggadah that we use.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
See, another connection. But I'll tell you something very interesting. When COVID came in March, so it would be 3 years.
3 years ago now.
Well, we couldn't have anybody for the Pesach Seder. Not children, grandchildren. It was just me and my wife. And we married then 54 years. And we dreaded having to spend the Pesach Seder just with each other. And it turned out really nice. It turned out really, really nice. And I said, you know, Sherry, we should spend some time more often. And since then, every single night, for all practical purposes, we spend 1 hour together watching television. Like everything else, we don't agree on what we want to watch. My wife and I don't agree on anything. She wants the air conditioning high, I want it low. I like rock music, she likes soft music. She's strict, I'm lenient. I'm a spender, I mean, everything. But we find a program to watch, and it's nice. So you discover interesting things at the Pesach
What
Seder.
program do you both agree on?
Noir mysteries, that kind of stuff. I don't have a very long attention span, which is why I love the computer, because I can just keep going from here to here.
You would
to
like
here.
TikTok.
Okay, but I'm telling you, last night I happened to have read an article about TikTok to try and understand it a little better. Because there's one thing on TikTok that I had been watching. There's a young woman on TikTok who does the Daf Yomi, a page from Talmud every day. And she's a sexy broad, and it comes out, and it's really funky. It's the closest I've come to doing the Daf Yomi. Now I read she's an atheist, which really blew my mind. But it shows me what TikTok can do. She can come into my home.
Well, she's an atheist, but she does the Daf Yomi.
Yes, I just read that she's an atheist. I didn't know that.
I would love to talk about that, because one thing that we've been talking a lot about, and the idea that you can be culturally Jewish, and what are the things that, how can someone be reading the Talmud and say that I'm an atheist? I guess she would say maybe she's culturally Jewish.
She would definitely say that she's culturally Jewish. And I think today more and more people are becoming culturally Jewish. Ultra-Orthodox are growing because they're having thousands of kids. It's not because everybody from the non-Orthodox community is knocking on their doors anymore. The Baal Tshuva movement is not what it was. I think a lot of Jews now are more comfortable being culturally Jewish. I don't believe that that's enough. I don't knock it because it is a connecting link. But I don't know if that's a link that can be passed on from generation to generation. I think there has to be some aspect of your life where you're a practicing Jew. That doesn't mean you're doing 100%. Nobody's doing it all.
But is that a belief in God, or is it doing the Seder, doing the holidays? Because I guess I would consider myself culturally Jewish, and I do the holidays, but I wouldn't consider myself a religious person.
How do you define a religious person?
That's my question to you. I don't know. I would maybe say a belief in God.
It helps. There's Pascal's wager. Pascal, I think, was a 17th century artist, philosopher, but his writings are still read. And he gave his attitude towards God. He says you can't prove it either way. You can't prove it either way, he says. But you have to make a bet. Which are you better off? Believing there is a God, or believing there isn't a God? If you believe there is a God, that can make you a better person, and you feel you have to answer eventually, and so on and so forth. If you believe there isn't a God, you have no roots, no motivation. So it's worth betting on God, especially if it ends up that there is a God. So there's somebody who believes in God because of that wager. Is he a religious person? See, and I see religion much more connected with how a person treats another person. I'm doing the Pesach Seder because it's teaching me Chayev Adam Liros es atzmo keilu hu yotzim mitzrayim. A person is obligated to see himself as if he left Egypt. I have to know what pain and suffering of the other is like. That has to sensitize me to other human beings. It's not just religion is not just a matter of eating the matzah and maror. It's taking the lesson from that and using it in life in the way you treat. 36 times in the Torah we're told, remember you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Remember what it's like to be an immigrant, to be a slave, to be mistreated, and act accordingly. But if you eat, no matter how much matzah you eat, if you don't treat your fellow human being properly, are you a religious person? Not in my books.
So how do you get someone to, I guess from my experience, it feels like, you're taught you should do these things. You should wake up in the morning and, pray. You should, if you want to, eat the matzah. But I think making the connection to why you're doing that thing gets lost a lot of the time.
Okay.
I think there's something great about mindfulness. Waking up and being appreciative. I've been having some back issues. Now when I wake up in the morning and I don't have any sort of pain, I'm so appreciative to just wake up in the morning and feel good with my body.
I had surgery on my back in November. And after the surgery, I literally couldn't get myself out of bed. And I do physical therapy and everything. And now every morning, I'm just like you. Wow. Now, I can't say that all my life I appreciated the ability to get out of bed. But the Jewish rituals are supposed to make me sensitive to all that. Mm-hmm. The rituals are supposed to have an ethical meaning to them. We're not just doing it. We're learning from it.
I guess, do you have any thoughts? How do you make that connection more obvious for people? How do you teach based off of the reasonings behind instead of just...
it's missing.
Yeah.
We're not teaching that. The Haredim in Israel, if you ask them, is that person religious? They'll ask, does he keep kosher? Does he observe the Shabbos? If he doesn't, he's not religious. They don't ask, does he cheat on his income tax? Does he let you get in line when your car is driving? This is all part of Judaism. Judaism is a way of life. It's because of things that I read in the Torah that the first thing I do in the morning, it's crazy, when I walk downstairs and come into my office, is feed my fish. I have this one fish.
You feed your animals before yourself.
The guy's staring me in the face. Hey, big rabbi, you forget about me?
What's his name?
I don't know. I don't develop an emotional attachment to things or fish. I do develop an emotional attachment to human beings. I love things. Look at my desk. Yeah, it's a little crazy. And I get something from Amazon just about every day. I think I have a personal shopper at Amazon. Crazy.
This guy.
I love things. But, nay, nay. I can't say that I have these great philosophies of life, but one that I've told my kids numerous times is if it can be fixed with money, it's not broken. Things. Here today, gone tomorrow. People.
And that goes back to what you were saying. Like, why wouldn't you live in Israel? Because your people
Because
are
my
here.
children live over here. I mean, that's...
And your job is growing community as a rabbi.
Yeah, well, but now I'm sort of retired. I really could, in theory, move to Israel. One of my sons had started a business in Israel with a Palestinian. They went to Bar Ilan University and they were studying, they both got their MBA degrees. He used to come from Hebron every day, the Palestinian, to Bar Ilan, and illegally he would stay over at my son's house. They were very, very friendly, and they started a business. And then came the Intifada. And my son had to move back, decided to move back to America. Had he stayed in Israel, I would have been torn on where I live, what I do, da-da-da. But having all my children and grandchildren within walking distance of me, I ain't going no place.
Yeah, irreplaceable.
Yeah. If I could have an apartment someplace, it would be New York. There's still New York inside of me.
Do you still have a community there, or just you feel connected to that place because it shaped who you were?
I've been around a good part of the world, certainly all of Europe, at most every country. And there's no place like New York.
Spoken like a true
New
New
Yorker.
Hey, I'm telling
New Yorkers
you,
love
I'm telling
to
you
say
the reality. You want opera? I go to the opera. You want theater? You go to the theater. You want movie? You go to the movie. You want kosher pizza? You go buy kosher pizza. You want to go look at whatever you want to do. It's there in New York. It's there in New York.
But having so many options available doesn't mean that it's necessarily a better place to be. I think a lot of people can get overconsumed by that and overwhelmed. I mean,
Yeah.
I have close friends who move there who, someone who's very, very content with who they are and all that, and then they move there and then they start looking at others and they go, oh, well, that person's making this much money and I was like, who cares? I know you don't care about that kind of stuff. And you can see there's impacts of moving to a place where, everyone is doing something amazing and you start to feel like
I don't
you're
think
not
in
enough.
terms of that, but I can understand why somebody would feel that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would want to live in New York, but I wouldn't mind having an apartment there. I wouldn't mind having an apartment there. But right now, I'm here. I'm going to Israel after Pesach. And my wife and I are starting to think a little bit of seeing a little of America. I don't know America. Like just the other day, I was thinking I'd like to go to Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville's fun.
I was once in New Orleans. Needless to say, I liked it. I don't know America, and I'm sure there are places that I would really like. I'd like to see Aspen. I wouldn't ski, but I'd be interested in seeing what goes on there. I've been to Vegas. I wouldn't mind going back to Vegas. There's a lot of shopping.
You're a spender, your wife's a saver.
You have no idea how much I'm a spender.
What's
you
your
have
favorite
no
thing to spend
idea.
on?
How much she's a saver. Yeah. My favorite thing to spend
on?
anything.
But ties and cars are really
Cars and cars is very big, but wallets, things from my desk.
I think it's rare to see, going to BT. Goes, oh, that's the rabbi. You driving off in the Jaguar. Like, oh, that's a cool rabbi.
Yeah. Consciously or unconsciously, I was always trying to make a statement that you can be Orthodox and part of this world. I always felt that there were misconceptions. The Orthodox rabbi was dressed in black and serious, so on and so forth. And even an Orthodox synagogue, I was buggy when I came here that the floors should be clean. Because people associate an Orthodox synagogue with torn prayer books and, messy. I wanted to burst that image.
Well, that's a unique thing, I think, about the community here at BT. Well, we were talking about it before we got here, right? So Chandler and I are actually a good example. Yossi plays into this example well. You grow up here and you see some people who are a part of this organization, the only Jewish thing in their life is that either they go to BT or they're a member of BT. Other people who are part of this organization, perhaps the least Jewish thing that they think about their life is that they go to BT or they're a part of BT. You have this wide ranging of Jewish identity.
I always say, everybody who comes to Beth Tefillah shares something in common. They all walk to shul. Some walk from their homes, some walk from the parking lot, but they all walk to shul. And once they walk in the doors here, love you just the way you are.
So
that's not what people associate Orthodoxy with, but they should.
Yeah.
Or we should.
And so you were mentioning that you were subconsciously or purposely making this statement about, you don't have to be a rabbi in the defined way that you may view it. Is that a message to the people who may not be as, maybe they're not walking, 25 minutes to shul, they're driving to shul, or just someone who just goes to school here? Is that message for those people?
It's to anybody who learns something from the message. Listen, part of this also was my sermons were very here and now. I was talking politics. But to me, talking immigration is not politics. And talking about taking care of the poor is not politics. And the Rambam, who says it's unpardonable almost for somebody to call people by the nicknames, that's not politics to me. That's Judaism. Or a recent sermon. I really wrote a book that's called What We Can Really Learn from the Rich and Famous. Okay? So let me give you an example. Taylor Swift. You all know who Taylor Swift is, of course.
She's a big banker.
Yeah, you got it. I'm with, what's the name now? Yee. Yeah, I'm big on Yee.
Yee. Oh, yeah. Yay.
Yay. No, I can't even say yay. Now that's a piece of work.
Yeah.
But this ties in with Taylor Swift, with that piece of work. Taylor Swift is a great singer. She has about 1 million followers on all of the social media. Why is so many people, what does she tell them? And more important is, what makes her opinion so important? There was a congressional hearing because Ticketmaster loused up selling tickets to a Taylor Swift concert. Jesus. There's not enough problems for the government to be looking into. So what is it about Taylor Swift? Taylor Swift a few years ago made a statement about somebody running for some office in wherever she lives. I don't remember.
I'm not sure.
And it shifted the whole race.
It's a lot of power.
I gave a sermon. We leave Moshe out of the Haggadah because we don't want to idolize a particular person. None of our holidays, here's the lesson. None of our holidays, we don't have St. Patrick's Day. We don't have a date because Jesus was born. We have a day because there was an exodus from Egypt. None of our holidays, we don't have President's Day. Because we don't idolize people. You've made Taylor Swift into an idol. So that's talking about Taylor Swift, but it's also about talking about today, and it's also talking about Judaism. The lessons from Judaism. And I try to do that. Listen, I live today. I'm a very here and now kind of guy. I'm not going to let something that went wrong in the past lurk. Forget about it.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. I'm very big on forget about it. And I'm also very big on it is what it is. And today is. The future, when I get there, I'm going to enjoy it. But I live today. I read about today. I speak about today. And I live life with a certain... My mother always used to tell us, chaperein. Chaperein means... Well, it literally, grab it in. While you have it, grab it in. You have a chance to go, just grab it in. And I'm a grab it in kind of guy. It's only now, these last few months when I'm in semi-retirement, or more than semi, that I now look back and, you know, look at things and what I did, da-da-da-da. And I'm a little sensitive about the future because someday the future is going to catch up with me. I'm not afraid of dying. Absolutely not. I've had... Well, my brother Saul always says that on my tombstone they should write, he pulled it off. I sometimes, you know, I think of myself, I'm still this little kid in Brooklyn who's wild. And now I'm shaking hands with the Pope, and with the President, and with the Prime Minister of Israel, and the King. I said, did they go home and tell their mothers and wives that they met Wohlberg? It's like, wow. But there's another side of me that says, that's all bull. That's not what it's all about. Here, I'm going to teach you a great lesson in life.
That's what we're here for.
You ready? I'm part of a rabbinic mission to Germany, which was quite an experience, really. One of those, yeah, I had been brought up, you don't buy anything that was made in Germany. In fact, my first Yom Kippur here, I spoke about that in a sermon, not knowing that a major member of the synagogue owned a Mercedes operation. Not the great way to endear yourself. Anyhow, to this day, I won't buy a German car. But now I don't do it just because I never did it. Because I was in Germany, and I'm saying these aren't the people who did it. And more than any other country I was in, they've acknowledged. You know, it's not like Poland says we didn't do anything. You know, we were forced to, or Bulgaria, or anything. They acknowledge I did it. There's plaques every place. Well, be that as it may, I'm part of this rabbinic mission, and we're having a formal dinner with the President of Germany. So we come to this dinner, classy affair, and then there's a line of people waiting to take a picture with the President of Germany. So my brother Jerry says to me, he was all smart in this way, let's get online. I said, I'm not getting online. I'm not waiting 15 minutes to take a picture with this guy. Who cares? I said, Jerry, come. I'm going to show you. We're going to take a picture. I went over to a waiter. He had a badge, Hans. I said, Hans, I'll give you $5 if you take off your badge. He was dressed formally. And I can take a picture with you. And we took a picture. I sent it back here to Beth Villa, and they published in the bulletin, Rabbi Wohlberg with the President of Germany. So what does that teach you? I don't know. Teach it yourself. Teach it yourself.
Reminds me of a story. This I won't go into the details of the story.
It's your grandfather's story.
Yeah, my grandfather tells a story about.
Tell it, yeah.
There's a big businessman, right? Really conquered the business world, and he said, "Okay, what's next for me? I want to figure out the meaning of life." So he uses all his money. He's exploring all over the world. You know, a shaman in Asia, a leader in the Middle East, all around the world, and he's spending tons of money and meeting with all these people. He finally hears about someone who lives on the top of the mountain in the Andes. He said, "Okay, I have to get up there." So he hires a team, Sherpas, and they're hiking to the top of this mountain, and then spends a month trying to get up there, and he finally gets up there and he meets this man. He said, What's the meaning of life? I heard that you're the one to talk to, And he says, "You want to know the meaning of life? Work with me for the next 6 months." Okay. Spends the next 6 months at the top of this mountain in the Andes, roughing it, working with this man, okay, and now I've worked with you for 6 months. What's the meaning of life? He says, life is, it's like a fountain. What do you mean life is like a fountain? I've been here for 6 months. I spent all my money trying to get up here. I've been working with you. What do you mean life is not like a fountain? Oh, it isn't?
That's it. Yep. No, I try to talk to you about life. Here's one of the things I have over here that I refer to from time to time. Life's hard. It's even harder if you're stupid. John Wade.
John Wade.
Sometimes before I say something, I think of that and I don't say it.
That's funny. I want to ask you a question about speaking. It's a bit more step back, but I know that even before I, came to BT, people I knew who were not members of BT, especially high holidays, they go, "Oh, I'm going to go to BT. I want to hear Rabbi Wohlberg speak." So something I think that I'm coming up. I'm doing a bit more public speaking now than I used to. What are your major tips for public speaking?
I can only tell you what worked for me.
Sure.
I consider the first paragraph the most important paragraph of the speech, because I'm either going to rope them in or lose them. Very frequently, I'll start a sermon with a joke. A joke that has some connection to the sermon I'm going to talk about. I have them in. Or I'll start by, let me talk to you today about Taylor Swift. I have them in. So I need that hook. Number one. Number two, make it relevant. Make it relevant. Give a person something that, hey, I never thought of that. And always tie it into Judaism. Because I'm not Walter Cronkite and I'm not Johnny Carson. I'm a rabbi. And ultimately, I try to bring Judaism alive. And it's talking to you today. I don't want to get into politics. But as a practicing Jew, I can't see how you can vote for Donald Trump. He's great for Israel. But he violates every single aspect of what we're taught to practice. Okay, and you know what? I've said that, and I got in trouble for it. There were people who walked out. First time in my life, people walked out. Okay. You're entitled to their opinion. But I can't make believe these issues don't exist. Telling them what the Lubavitcher Rebbe said about that particular pasuk is usually good, because the Lubavitcher Rebbe usually had a relevant message. It wasn't just defining the definition of. So, speak to your audience. Mm-hmm. And know who your audience is.
Do you ever get nervous before you speak?
No. I used to. Now I feel like I'm sitting there in my living room and talking.
It's important.
What's also important, be prepared. I never deliver a sermon, a eulogy, a wedding dress, a bar mitzvah charge that I don't have every single word written out in front of me. There's no such thing as winging it. I owe the people who are there more. And I do prepare. I spend more time working on a sermon and redoing it and a bar mitzvah charge or something than I think most other rabbis do. I'll do research. I'll go back and see what I said about this girl at her bat mitzvah, and I'll make reference to it. And people love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I had to go through a pack of books to find the bat mitzvah charge but I did it.
Yeah. You're so involved in so many people's lives. I mean, if you're talking at someone's bat mitzvah or you're giving a eulogy, you have to relate it and do something personal. Maybe you didn't know that person on such a personal level.
I have to make. I am not giving a eulogy about the Torah portion of the week. I've heard those. I'm talking about the person.
Yeah.
And I can do it because I once spoke about a person and praised him, and a guy in Shul, Irv Kroll, passed away, wonderful guy. He said, here, I'm an Orthodox rabbi. Irv Kroll used to deliver the Washington Post to my newspaper, to my door every Shabbos. But we don't go into that. So I praise someone and says, oh, Rabbi, I'm sick of your bull. This one's so great and that one's so great. Come on. I said, Irv, don't worry. When it comes your turn, I'll lie about you also. And that's it. But you know what? There's always something good to say about a person. Mm-hmm. I never, in a eulogy, lie. Never. I'm not going to say a guy was charitable if he wasn't charitable. Because everybody out there knows it. The people out there know that person better than I did.
Right.
So you might as well tell the truth. But there are nice ways of telling the truth. My mother, somebody will tell me, my mother, it had to be her way. Mary Schwartz, she was a very strong-willed woman.
A woman of principle.
A woman of principle. You can do it.
Yeah.
So, being the rabbi of a huge community, how do you balance your own personal life with the role? Almost your profession is so in sync with your personal life.
Only now do I realize that I didn't have a personal life. I was always on. You go shopping at 7 Mile. Hi, Rabbi Wohlberg. Oh, Rabbi Wohlberg, I've been meaning to ask you. See, when I was rabbi in Washington, that wasn't the case. I could go to the movies, I could do this, that. I very rarely bumped into people who knew you. It was a very spread out sort of community. Here, I always say, the nicest thing about being Rabbi Wohlberg is everybody knows you. And the worst thing about being Rabbi Wohlberg is everybody knows you. Yeah. So,
is there something, I'm sure a lot of people come to you and asking you questions. Are there things that come to mind as some particularly wild interactions you've had with somebody in terms of something they're asking you about?
Yeah, I'm laughing at myself for some of the things I say. There are times people come into this office and say, Rabbi, you've never heard a problem like this. And I say to them, unless you're doing it with a goat, I've heard it. Now, that's not the thing I should be saying to them. God almighty. I have to stop that. People are always coming in with problems with the family.
Yeah.
That's almost every thing involves the family. And I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything. And there are times more than there are times when I'll say to a person, listen, I'm a general practitioner. You need to go to a specialist. I'm a very, very big fan of therapy. Very big fan. I experienced it, and I felt it was life-changing. Well, my friend used to say, sure, for you to go to somebody and be able to talk about yourself for an hour and have Blue Cross Blue Shield pay for it, that's right up your alley. Oh, but I always felt that therapy gave me a mirror and forced me to see myself for who I really am, for better and for worse. Mm-hmm. Can learn a lot from that. So if it's a marriage issue, very often I'll I'll tell people, I'll send people to a marriage counselor. I have some people that I have faith in, so to speak.
Or you might say, have a Seder, just you and your wife, and see how that helps.
Yeah, listen, from my father, I learned decency. I didn't learn it that well, but he represented. I never heard him say a bad word about anybody. I never heard anybody say a bad word about him. He was a very well-known rabbi in Borough Park. He taught rabbinic students at Yeshiva University. But there was a fineness and a decency to him that I can't say I developed, but see that as something to aspire to. Mm-hmm. My mother taught me common sense. My mother was a Bronx broad. And so when I speak with people, I'm just telling them how I hear it. And it's usually, and my wife is a smart cookie, she's a social worker, so sometimes I'll tell them, listen, let me think about this, and I'll give you a call tomorrow, and then I run home and ask my wife what she thinks. There are a couple of things from my sermons that really impacted on my life. One was I told a story about Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor, all her jewelry was robbed. And as I said in the sermon, and there must have been a lot of engagement rings because she was married 7 times. And they interviewed her and asked her, how badly she felt about losing jewelry. She said, I don't cry for things that won't cry for me. That works by me. Mm-hmm. And the other one was Shirley MacLaine and Warren Beatty, a brother and sister. And they're very, very different. And they once asked Shirley MacLaine, how does she get along so well with her brother? And she said, we're family. Boom.
Yeah.
That I practice big time. We're family. We'll work it out.
Mm-hmm. I want to get back to, you said that you didn't have a social life before you retired. What is it about your social life now that you feel like is so separate from your earlier days as a rabbi?
It's not easy having a close friendship with a member of your congregation. It's not easy. It can be done. And it's not easy going out to dinner with somebody who's a member of your congregation just to be sociable because he'd rather be home. Now, I see what I didn't have, but I'm not doing anything really to change it. This is a time in my life where I'm having a heck of a time with myself, where I can think. And I don't have to think about the next sermon. I can just think. I have a, what's it called, where the pictures flash before you in a screen.
Teleprompter?
It's like a teleprompter, and I have pictures of my whole family from different years.
Are they like Aurora or Aura?
Something like that.
I think a picture, a digital picture.
A digital picture, and it's on there for 4 seconds, flips to the next, flips to the next. I never look back on pictures all my life. Never, ever. Not my kid's bar mitzvah or my wedding or anything. I said, these things keep flipping by. I'm having such a good time. I never allowed myself that time. My mind was constantly running on the next sermon, the next class, the next eulogy, whatever. And it was all consuming. And right now, Aaron Rodgers, what did he do to decide whether he wanted to stay in Green Bay or wanted to become a Jet or retire? He went to a dark place for 4 days. Now, I don't know what that was, and people thought he was crazy. I get it. I get it.
Is there something you would do differently? If you could go back 20 years.
You see, I have to think about it because it doesn't hover in my mind. There's one or two members of my congregation who can't stand me, and I can't stand that. When you have a congregation of 1,200 families, one or two ain't bad. And I'm still able to fake it, much better than they are. Yeah, I would want everybody to love me, and I would want to love everybody, but you can't have it all. I gave a sermon. This is all part of my, nobody has it all. Nobody knows it all. Nobody has it all. Nobody knows it all.
Does it all?
Nobody does it all. Yeah. So right now I'm in that period of, let me spend an hour with my wife watching television. Let me feed my mind more and read more and just chill. And I'll see.
Sounds like building in time into your day for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Building in time for the people you care about.
Absolutely. But it's mostly for myself, I have to be honest with you. My life is either in my office at home or in my bed. I can read for 3 hours in bed.
What is one thing that you do just for yourself?
I have a certain routine in my life. I wake up, I have a cup of coffee, I daven quickly. I go downstairs on my recumbent bike, and I have already received the delivery of the New York Times, Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal. And I read all three while I'm doing the recumbent bike. And then I do my exercises from physical therapy. I mean, there is a certain routine. And then I'm right back at my desks, email, blogs, whatever it is that's popping up on the screen that I'm of interest in. Then I have a bowl of soup for lunch, do a little bit more reading, take a nap. I wake up, it's 3:30, ready for dinner.
Nice, sounds pretty good.
I mean, who would want to? And then I float into here, into Beth Tefillah, most days of the week for an hour and a half. This is my country club. This is where all my friends are. This is where my social life is. And we have the people here are really, 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 really nice. These are my friends.
Yeah. I have one final question that I want to ask.
Go.
Okay. So over this sort of conversation, we've spoken about, the variety of identities within the Jewish identities of the organization at BT. Talk about the importance of community, also balancing the more traditional Orthodox way with like you said, like living in the world, right, and being a part of the world. And I think that a big part of what Call Your Bubby is sort of connecting an older generation to a newer generation. And I think you can see that very clearly in the Jewish community as well, right? A big part of this is like, oh, well, every generation thinks that the older generation doesn't understand some of the things that the new generation believes. And I think you can see that just generally, and I think you can see that in the Jewish community as well. So I want to get your perspective on certain things that I think come up more these days as a conversation between old generations, new generations, more traditional Judaism versus maybe more secular Judaism. I think that could be anything from, you mentioned like the more specific, like you have to daven 3 times a day, right? Or keeping kosher, or doing a Passover Seder. And I think you can go to lifestyle decisions like marrying Jewish and the importance of marrying Jewish, or the LGBTQ community and things of that nature. Like, how do you balance what's clearly, a Jewish conversation that's going on right now, a generational conversation that's going on right now? Like, where do you find yourself in terms of being able to facilitate that conversation within a community?
What the hell is he talking about?
Use a lot of big fancy words.
Did you understand what he just said? Yeah.
Say it to me like I'm 5.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give it to you. LGBT, EFG, and all that stuff. Forget about it, man. Be who you are. That's not for me to decide. Yeah, Judaism says that homosexuality is forbidden. It also says that driving on Shabbos is forbidden. It also, should I go down all the list? This is one of them. Okay, does that bar you from a synagogue or from a community? No. No. And I really do believe, certainly in terms of gays, that is part of your birth makeup. I can't be bothered by that. Intermarriage is a real problem. It's such a problem that most rabbis won't even talk about it. And every movement in Judaism is dealing with it. Reform, okay, the rabbis will officiate an intermarriage, but only now in some of the reform schools are they allowing the students to be intermarried. Conservative really has a problem in how to deal with intermarried, because if the rabbis aren't going to officiate at the intermarriage wedding, they're all going to go reform temples. Well, they ain't going to go nowhere. And you can always make the case, which is true, welcoming them in we can have an effect on them, which I do believe. But when 70% of the non-Orthodox are not marrying Jews, man, we're going to pay a price for that. Big time. Sure, some convert, and the ones who convert, I've had that experience, turn out to be better Jews than the person they marry. And some, they'll allow their children to go to a day school. There's all of those, and I respect that and accept that and have to deal with that. But we're going to pay a huge problem. From generation to generation. You're not going to tell me that in an intermarried family, a child is going to develop the same connection to the Jewish people and to Jewish rituals as in a family where they're both Jewish. And you're not going to tell me that having a menorah and a Christmas tree is healthy. What's this kid to understand? And what's he to connect to? And how many times are they going to go to a synagogue? And what's the non-Jewish partner going to feel at the Pesach Seder? And how will people there feel? I have to watch every word I say because the shik's is here. And keep doing. I remember once reading a court case. There was a group of Indians. An Indian tribe went to court claiming that this land was part of their tribe, of course, because they wanted to build a casino there. The judge ruled that there's been so much intermarriage through the generations that this tribe is not really the tribe anymore. And that struck me and stuck in my head. It's not going to be the same tribe. You know where it will be? In Israel.
Yeah.
Half the Jewish people already, close to half the Jewish people are already living in Israel. And in Israel, there's a Jewish rhythm. Everybody knows it's Pesach. They might be ticked off that they can't buy bread. Now there's a fight in Israel about whether you can bring chametz into a hospital during Pesach. They definitely know it's Pesach then.
Yeah.
They're basically marrying fellow Jews. That's where it's going to be perpetuated. I don't see... I'm the most positive person I know, but this particular issue, when you look at the numbers, how they're dropping in Reform temples and conservative synagogues, and people are just hiring a tutor so that you can have your daughter's bat mitzvah and she can read 3 transliterated sentences at the country club. I oftentimes say, kiddingly but not kiddingly, I got out just in time. This generation is breaking the link.
It's an extremely important conversation I've been having with a lot of my friends.
No question about it. Yeah. This, all these other issues, but this one, we see what it's producing.
Yeah.
So what can be done to rebuild that link?
That's for the next generation of rabbis. No, I mean that very, very seriously. I don't know enough about social media to how can that be used and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I told you not to call me when I'm with people. No. Wait, I have to call you back. Okay? Bye.
I love that ringtone.
We should wrap
Yeah, that's another.
I got one more for you.
Yeah.
Did you have a bubby?
One of the few regrets I have is that I never had a relationship with a grandparent. My father's father died while he was still living in Hungary at the age of 32. My father came to America when he was 19. My father's mother remarried. It wasn't a happy marriage. Then when she came to America, she married a third man. I used to visit her, but it was no real bond. My mother's mother died when I was 2 years old. And my grandfather, who had been a major player and a successful man, I only knew him as a sick, old, sort of semi-out of it. So I don't have any real links with that generation. I've heard about them. I know some stories, although not many. Not many. My mother says that her mother used to say, if my mother had to take a bus to come see her, she lived too far away. So there was a real tight family there, but I didn't know that connection. I knew all of my aunts and uncles, and there was a real relationship there, but not the previous generation. Now my grandchildren, they know my Amazon password. Okay? Can you get more intimate than that? They know my Amazon password. To the best of my remembrance, I've never used the word no with any of my grandchildren. There's enough people telling them don't do this and don't do that. They should have one person, a safe zone. You come to me, baby, whatever you need. You need money? Here's a couple of $100. Don't worry. Here's a gift card to Target. You want to order something from Amazon? Let's go. You know the password. That's where I am with them.
You become a parent so that you can be a grandparent one day.
I've become Santa Claus.
Yeah.
I have become Santa Claus. I wasn't like this as a parent. I wasn't that closely connected with my children. I was the rabbi of the Philly congregation. I had to take care of other people's children. Although, to this day, my sons are my two closest friends. I speak to them most every day.
That's amazing.
But all of that I owe to my wife. She's the glue. And I feel every family needs a glue.
I think we can all probably think of our own families and think of that person who's the ones organizing all the holidays and keeping everyone's information.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Could you give a final just reminder to everyone to call their bubbies? The importance of that?
Oh, man, now you're reminding me of something. You remind me of something. Everybody out there should buy this book. What We Can Really Learn from the Rich and Famous by Rabbi Mitchell
Say it to the
Wohlberg.
camera.
Okay, you got it? It's available on Amazon.
What's your Amazon password?
Only if you're one of my grandchildren. Because a lot of the things we talked about, I have in this book. It's what we can really learn from the rich and famous, from Taylor Swift and from Kanye West and from all sorts of other people. There's a little essay on hugging, on knowing it all. Play by the rules, repeat offenders, right and wrong, smile you're on candid camera. Smile you're on candid camera? Yeah, that was another good lesson in life. Early on, when they started videotaping, early on, I was officiating at a wedding here, and they put a mic for the video on top of the chuppah. I didn't know. I didn't know it was being recorded. I didn't know you could hear everything. After the wedding, a week or two later, the family invited me to the home. And there I am talking to the cantor while somebody's coming down the aisle. The cantor says, oh, look at that schmata dress he's wearing. Thank God. I said, no, that's not too bad. But if you're talking about schmata, their uncle somebody is there. He is such a putz.
That's what you said?
Played right. So, the lesson is somebody's always watching and hearing, especially our children. They know the truth. They know if you're giving charity. They know. They know everything else. Things that you think are hidden. I'm telling you from my own experiences. Oh, so what were we talking about?
Call your bubby.
Call your bubby. Oh, so here's what. There was a very famous coach, Bear Bryant. He was the coach of at University of Alabama, and they were major. They still are major.
Yeah.
And when he retired, AT&T or somebody hired him to make a commercial. And the commercial was he picked up the phone and he said, like a coach said, call your mama.
Yeah.
And then, that was supposed to be the end of it. He had tears in his eyes and said, I sure wish I could. From that day on, I called my mother every single day of my life, except Shabbos. Every single day, it made no difference where I was. My last phone call to my mother, Ma, I'm in the old city in Jerusalem. Is there anything I can pick up? I'm coming home this evening. And she said, just come home safely. I love you. And by the time I got home, she had passed away. And I called her every day, and I still feel good about that. And I did something else that, I mean, a rabbi shouldn't be bragging that I did it, but anybody who knows me will know that this was rather surprising. I never missed a Kaddish for either my mother or father. Never missed a Kaddish. If I was in Russia, I got a minyan. If I was in New York, I got a minyan. Morning, afternoon, evening. I built my life around being someplace where I would have a minyan morning, afternoon, and evening. Ask me why I did it.
Why'd you do it?
I don't know. Because it was the right thing to do. Did it uplift their neshama in heaven? I'm supposed to say that as a rabbi. But I can't tell you, I know that for sure. I did it because they always did right by me. I was going to do right by them. And you know what? To this day, I feel good about having done it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
I can't imagine anybody wants to watch this. But I wish you guys well, really.
Thank you
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You know, you're smart. 'Cause if you don't knock on the door, you'll never get in.
Mm-hmm.
Paste and knock on the door.
Yeah.
Who knows where it goes?
Hi, sweetheart, it's Bubby. Look forward to talking to you as usual. Love you.